Welcome to another Demis Hellen tutorial. In this video we're going to be looking at the kick and the bass, and we're going to look at how we identify the fundamental frequency of each. So the fundamental frequency is the original note of the whole sound. So you're going to get harmonics in there, which makes up the sound. But we're going to find that fundamental frequency, the original note that is being hit. So what we've got here is a kick and a bass, and we're going to identify both, and we're going to just use EQ. We're not going to use anything else. Techniques after that are entirely up to the user. We can put a bit of sidechain compression in there, which is going to be an obvious solution to the problem, but it doesn't actually get rid of the frequencies as such. It just dips the volume. So you still got that muddy sound, but being dipped. So you need to EQ it and just understand what's going on. So here we have a kick and a bass. And all we've got is just those two bars. So the kick and the bass are currently fighting for the space. It might not sound like it, but below our hearing range and a bit into our hearing range, you can hear there is a little bit of a problem, and we'll be able to see there's a bit of a problem. So jumping into the mixer, we'll open up the kick and we'll open up the bass. So you can see here kick and perk bass. So let's just take a look at what's going on. Right, so you can see there are two fundamental frequencies on there, one for each. But how do you identify that? Obviously we're going to look at the lower range, because the lower range is where the fundamental frequency is found. Everything above is harmonics. So fundamental, harmonics, fundamental, harmonics. So the kick drum, we're going to naturally want to boost around this area somewhere. You can see the peak of the kick is about there. So about 82 Hz there, you can see, and we've boosted it by 3 dB. Kind of standard practice. And then the bass is now hitting in a very similar area. The fundamental frequency is a bit lower, I'd say. So we hit there 61, but we've still got the frequencies at 82 pushing through, and we need to hear the kick more than the bass at the moment. We need the kick to breathe. And at the moment it's being drowned, especially on the notes that are hitting on beat. So usually, yeah, just chuck some sidechain compression on there, but that's not always the answer, because you've still got those frequencies muddying up the sound. So what we're going to do is we've identified the fundamental frequency, we're just going to flatten that down. So it's around 62. What we're going to do now is jump in and get 82,538. Look's already found it, so it's snapped to it nicely. What we're going to do is, where we've boosted, we're just going to actually cut here by 3 dB. Now it doesn't have to be 3 dB, it's how it sounds to your ears. And at the moment it's giving it some breathing space. The kick's punching through, the bass is kind of tamed a little bit. So let's just listen to that without EQ on. So we've added a bit of punch, and we've also added a bit of clarity. But it does sound like the bass has lost its power. So that's where the fundamental frequency comes in. Obviously we're not going to boost it right there, but we're going to give it a boost in this kind of curved area. But at the same time we're going to also roll it off to about 20 Hz, which is where our hearing range kind of stops. Just to clear anything up. We can hardly hear anything there. There's a couple of frequencies coming through we can feel more than hear. So we've tamed the bass and we've increased the kick a little bit. Now, depending on the track you're doing, we also want to get rid of a bit of boxiness. And boxiness occurs in this general area here. So just above. So if you can hear that boxiness there, if we just actually solo that. That's what we call boxiness. It's very boxy sound. It sounds like it's been played in a box. So I'm just removing a little bit of that by, again, around 3 decibels, just for good practice. And for this instance, I just want a bit more click. So I'm just going to raise that top bit. So we've identified the fundamental frequency of the kick, which is around 82, and there. So as you can see, I have done that pretty quickly. But how do I know that is the fundamental frequency? So let's take that And we're going to add another fab filter in here, so we're not altering these settings. Let's get rid of that. And get rid of that so we've got no distractions. So we think the fundamental frequency is around, it was 82 I think, wasn't it? 538. So we're going to make the Q quite sharp, and we're going to turn it to 30 decibels reach. So there would be the fundamental frequency, personally, for the click. But I'm looking for a little bit of the bass behind it, which is about there. I don't want too much kind of afterthought on there. That would be the fundamental frequency right there. There's no noise after, there's no noise before. That is the click, that is the punch of the kick. So if we was to widen that up a bit, we get a nice punchy kick. That's more rounded. So depending on what track you're trying to kind of achieve, the overall sound, that is determined by that. So the fundamental frequency is the bit where you can't hear any kind of extra noise. That's more resonance. But if we move that back down, there's a bit of body coming through. That's not the actual... The more we go down, the more we kind of get the sub woom woom. So depending on the track you're trying to create is where you're going to boost your kick, and then that's where you're also going to cut the bass. So because I'm not aiming for that fundamental frequency spot on, I'm going for more on the sound. I want a more rounded feel, and that's why I've boosted at 82 there. And once you've done it a few times, you get used to it on how you want to sound, and it's usually around the kind of 80 to 90 mark that I'm usually going for the tracks that I create anyway. So as you can see, side by side, let's just unmute that one. We've created some breathing room, and now we can start adding some side chain in there. We can do all sorts to enhance the productivity, but that is the main thing you've got to do. You've really got to roll off those basses. You can do it on the kick, don't always do it. It's good practice. Just roll it off just before 20,000, just to get rid of any of that muddiness down in the bottom end. That sub will pick up, and it will alter how the rest of the track sounds, because you've got all these bass frequencies flying around like crazy. So we can't hear it, but the speakers are reproducing that sound and cluttering up the rest of the headroom, which we don't want. So there we go. Just to show you for effect, we're going to use Kickstart. Let's just wait for it to load, my apologies. Here we go. There we go. So that takes the focus off the kick, and it also ducks it nicely at the same time. If we just went for that on its own without, that bass is still conflicting with the kick, just at a lower level. So you're still getting those frequencies coming through, cluttering up the headroom. Thus, when you get to later on in the mix, to put your synths and everything else in and the vocals, you think, why is my track sounding so bad? Why is it so full and I haven't got any headroom to actually mix and master? That's probably your reason. You've got too much going on in the low end, which is just cluttering it up straight away, and it's giving you no option to do anything later on in the mix. And if you never actually sort that out, you've built the track around those problems. Taking away those problems with that technique then means you have to alter the rest of your track, and your workflow increases like crazy. And I've been there, done that, and it's a case of I've just exported some of the main sounds and started again totally from scratch, because it's just too difficult and too time consuming. It can be done, but what's the point when you can just do it right from the beginning? So there's the fundamental frequency. I hope that has explained some of the questions that have been asked. Let's just have a quick recap. Jumping over here, we've rolled off the bass on each one to get rid of the clutter, the sounds that we can't hear. We've identified the fundamental frequency. As I've said, that isn't the actual fundamental frequency there. You find it by narrowing the Q a little bit and just increasing the gain. So it's not overdriving, but you're pinpointing the proper click of the sound. And then we've also reduced the bass at the same point to obviously compensate, so this is not interfering with the kick. And then we've identified the box area. So the box area is typically, let's just click off there, is typically between here, so about 100 Hertz to about somewhere here, yeah? So somewhere around there. So you can see we've got from 100 to about 400 there as a range. Let's just get rid of that. So the boxiness occurs there, but I can see there's a fundamental frequency. This is a harmonic of it. This is the next level up. Let's just listen. It's nice to start a track with. Start introducing the kick, filtering it in. But I don't particularly want that boxiness in there. So if we just click on that and get rid of it. It gives it a slightly deeper feeling, and it's very hard to hear, but if you train your ears and you know what's going on, you can actually hear those subtle differences. So there you have it. That is the fundamental frequency explanation. I've tried to make it as easy as possible without rambling on. So if you did enjoy the video, like it, please share it. And finally, just for all the latest news now, check my Instagram and my webpage, which is demishellen.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.